Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies, and the Philadelphia Phillies are one win away from clinching a postseason berth. We'll talk about how they got here and the clinching scenarios on today's episode.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You may know me from some of the other work that I do in the sports talk space here in Philadelphia. Been on the radio at 97.5 The Fanatic for 5 years now. This is my third year as a credentialed Philadelphia Phillies media member. This is also my third year as the host of Locked On Phillies. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff that really helps us out. Today's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. And in today's show, we're going to dive into a reaction to tonight's game that put the Philadelphia Phillies one victory away from a postseason berth. The hunt for Red October is shortening down. We'll go through the clinching scenarios surrounding the postseason berths and the NL East and everything like that. And we're also going to preview Game 3 with the Brewers. But last night, the story of last night's victory over the Milwaukee Brewers starts and ends with one man. And that is Zack Wheeler, who was absolutely dominant once again on the mound. He was a monster. 7 innings, only allowed 1 run. He didn't have like his best strikeout stuff in the game. He only K'd 6 batters, which some pitchers at Major League Baseball would die to K 6 batters consistently over 7 innings, 1 earned. He only allowed 4 hits, though. He scattered them. He got big double plays when he needed to. He was just flat out dominant in this game. And Matt Strahm and Jeff Hoffman did a great job out of the bullpen. But Bryce Harper talked after the game, and he said how, to him, Zack Wheeler is the National League Cy Young winner. He's got to be the Cy Young winner. Bryce may not be as familiar with what Chris Sale is doing down there in Atlanta. I do think it's still Chris Sale's award at this given time. But Zack Wheeler made another strong case last night. He's been amazing. He's been dominant. He's been one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. And to know you have that guy to start off a postseason series, that makes you feel pretty darn confident about your chances. And he was great last night in a lot of ways. But the Brewers, their lineup, I mean, they've got some good hitters on this team, and led by Contreras. But I mean, Rhys Hoskins and, Tarang Churio, Mitchell, Willie Adames. They have a lot of guys that have had strong offensive seasons. They can beat you in a lot of different ways, is the way Rob Thompson talked about it. And the Phillies went out there and their ace shut down the Milwaukee Brewers. I can't say enough good things about Zack Wheeler. He may be, I got to think about this statement carefully, because it involves more than just the sport of baseball, and it involves more than just the city of Philadelphia. But Zack Wheeler may be the most underrated star athlete in the major 4 professional North American sports right now. He may be. He does not have a Cy Young award to his name. He won a Gold Glove last year, but outside of that, he doesn't get like the acclaim that he deserves. He's been this guy for multiple seasons in Philadelphia. He was somewhat of this guy when he was in New York with the Mets. He should be a guy that's on every Mount Rushmore of current Major League Baseball pitchers. He's got to be. He's that good. He's been that good again this year. He was that good last year. He was that good the year before. He's been exceptional basically his whole time here in Philadelphia. It's why they gave him the contract extension this offseason. Again, there's a lot of athletes out there when I talk about the 4 major North American sports. And I'm not just talking in Philly. I'm saying anywhere. Zack Wheeler may be the most underrated. He is a bona fide star that gets treated like not just another guy, but gets treated as just another one. And he's not just another one. No, he is one of the top 4 or 5 arms in the sport right now. And I can't tell you anybody that I'd rather have. There are other guys that it's like, okay, it would be a tough choice, but I don't know who else you'd rather have than Zack Wheeler in a big spot going to the mound with the baseball in his hand. He was incredible. Some other incredible things in this game. The top 4 batters in the Phillies lineup yesterday, Schwarber, Turner, Harper, and Castellanos. They went 7 for 18, combined for all 5 RBIs that the Philadelphia Phillies had. You had Bryce Harper with a big-time home run. You had Dick Castellanos with a big-time home run. Harper, 2 RBIs in the game. It's nice to see. Like, Castellanos has been doing this, and it's great to see him put another good swing on a baseball. He's been a little bit colder than he was when he was one of the more consistent players on the team for a stretch of a month or so there. But Bryce Harper has now hit 3 home runs in the past week, when he went nearly a month without hitting one. So am I looking at this as Bryce Harper's powers coming back from October? I guess the answer to that is I hope so. The Phillies could really use it. It would be awesome if that's how that works. We've seen this happen in the past for Bryce Harper, have a slow start to September or a slow month of September and then just turn it on in the postseason. Hopefully he's doing that. I don't know if he's getting healthier with the elbow or wrist stuff that he's been dealing with, but to see him put one out of the yard, that was just, it was a great feeling. And you saw kind of a weird reaction from Bryce Harper, where it looked like he didn't think he got all of that pitch, got enough to hit it out of the yard, was what the reaction looked like. He talked about it after the game in a post-game interview. And he said he knew he got it, which is great to hear, because you think back to the time in the 9th inning against who even was that at Citizens Bank Park? It was one of the last series when he hit the ball off the wall and didn't run it completely out. Oh, yeah, it would have had to been, was it the Rays game? Was it the Mets game? There's so many games. Anyway, when he hit the ball, remember the moment I'm talking about, off the wall in right field, and he pimped it and he didn't run it out, and he ends up on first instead of second, and it ends up being a walk-off anyway. But you're looking at a situation where Bryce Harper now knew he got one. It got out of the yard. That's got to feel good. And he was reacting because he said, yeah, well, I don't normally see that guy very well. He's dominated me in my career, so it was good to finally get one, stay on top of a baseball, was pretty much what he said when he was asked about that reaction. So things are good with Bryce Harper. I mean, Edmundo Sosa was activated yesterday. He played third base. Eddie didn't really do all that much in the game when his first action back since being on the injured list with those back spasms. He was 1 for 3 with a run scored. So that's good to see. He had a walk as well, so on base 2 times. But it's just nice to see his team getting healthy. Bohm is back. Realmuto's back. Sosa's back. The only guy you're really waiting on to come back is Austin Hayes, who has that kidney infection, and that can be really, really tricky. So basically the Phillies are back to their full complement of players without their trade deadline acquisition. Hayes, the hope is that he will play again before the end of the season, but it's not like he rolled his ankle. It's just going to heal over time. Internal issues like a kidney infection, it's not worth risking anything. It's not worth rushing anything. Him being healthy as a person is much more important than him being healthy as a baseball player. But I say all that to say this. The Phillies are starting to, their lineup is starting to look more like how it should look. They're continuing to win baseball games. They're putting themselves in great position. And the magic number for the postseason has been cut down to 1. The magic number for the division has been cut down to 4. And with games looming against the Mets later this week, after this game today against the Brewers, you're going to play 4 up at Citi Field against the Mets. You have a golden opportunity to clinch the NL East before the end of the week. And we're going to talk about, coming up, the clinching scenarios to know and discuss exactly what needs to happen, because some people, the magic number may seem like a complicated concept. I'll break down everything you need to know in as simple terms as possible. But yeah, last night it was really nice to see the top of the order creating offense, the ace going on the mound and doing what he does, the bullpen being absolutely shut down with some of the top arbs that you have, and the Phillies winning against a tough team up there in Milwaukee. They're now 4-1 against Milwaukee on the year. That win also gives them the season series over the Brewers, because even if they lose today, it'll be 4-2. So, because remember, the Phils swept Milwaukee out of Citizens Bank Park, what feels like years ago, but back earlier on in the season. That's huge too, because in the standings, as you look at it, the Philadelphia Phillies, well, they're still trying to lock down a 1 or a 2 seed. They have the best record in all of baseball by 2 games, but the Brewers are only 4 games back, and that can change, especially having played that team right now. They could pick up a full game today if the Brewers win 3 games. They're 12 remaining. It's not unheard of. It's unlikely, but it's not unheard of. So a very big game to give yourself the tiebreaker. Now, I say 4 games because that's what's on the standings. Technically, with last night's win, that lead now increases to 5 games, because if they end even, the Phils will have the tiebreaker. By the way, don't forget, they still have the tiebreaker over the Los Angeles Dodgers as well for winning the season series against that team. So the Phillies, with the next 2 closest teams, vying for a first-round bye have the tiebreaker. They are set up in the division to potentially lock this thing down this week. We'll go through. I know what you're wondering. Well, what exactly do they have to do that? How close are they? How likely is it? Is there a thought process about picking and choosing your spot you want to do it? We'll have all that conversation coming up next as we continue today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Let's go ahead and talk about our friends over at FanDuel, though, because FanDuel is absolutely amazing, and we have something special going on, right? You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. They're America's #1 sports book, but we got a little something different for you right now. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. You know, football season is amazing. You love the NFL, I'm sure. If you're a sports fan, the NFL is a monster part of your life in the fall. And you might not be able to see the games, might not be able to see out of market or anything like that. Well, with the YouTube TV base plan, after you do this, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So go ahead and take advantage of that great deal with our friends over at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Also want to talk to you about GameTime, because if you're going to get tickets to a game, not just sitting on the couch watching, no, you want to go, well, guess what? GameTime's the place that you need to go to. GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. It's not just sports. It's not just baseball. No, you can go to football games when basketball and hockey start back up, and you can do that. MLS. You can go to a whole bunch of different events, concerts, comedy, theater. Basically, if you're getting tickets for something and you're not using GameTime, you're being silly, and here's why. Well, GameTime Picks filter out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. You also get the chance to see the view from your seat before you purchase the tickets. You get to see the fees up front so they don't surprise you at the end. You know how much you're paying right from the start. You get some of the best ticket insurance in the business, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Oh, and they have a lowest price guarantee, the GameTime guarantee, where they will credit 110% of the difference if you find seats in the same row and section for less. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. This gets even better. You'll get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download GameTime today. I love this new slogan. What time is it? It's game time. All right, let's talk clinching scenarios for the Philadelphia Phillies. This does get a little bit complicated. I'm going to try and make this as simple as possible. The magic number, it's funny. It's something that really people only use for baseball. And I understand that there's just so many more games than all the other sports. It helps you kind of count down to where the teams could be at. But it breaks down to a rather simple concept. For the magic number, it's built off the team closest to you in the standings. So if the Phillies are being trailed, for example, by the Mets by like 2 games or whatever, and there's 1 game left, the Philadelphia Phillies magic number, that's not a great example because I did the math wrong, but you get it. It's built off of how many games the team behind you is trailing by and how close you are to being done the regular season. What happens when the team chasing you loses a game is you cut 1 off that number. When your team wins a game, you cut 1 off that number. For example, the Mets are the team chasing the Phillies. So if the Phillies went ahead and beat the Mets in game 1 in New York tomorrow that they're going to be playing in, that would cut the magic number down 2 games. It would go from, for example, the magic number now is 4. It would go to 2 for the NL East, and so on and so forth. Right now, though, let's start with the base level, because this is something that has become kind of so quickly, right? How quickly we forget that the Phillies had a 10-year postseason drought only 2 years ago. Like when they made it in 2022, that was a decade long of no Red October. And we lost our minds over it. It was great. And then they went to the World Series and everything was amazing. I know they didn't win it all, but what a moment that was. And now, after making the postseason each of the past 2 seasons, it's funny how much of an afterthought it's become making it in. Keep in mind, right? This is all you need to know to understand how big of a deal this is, clinching the postseason, even with the expanded postseason picture. Currently, the Atlanta Braves, they're on the outside looking in by 2 games. Yeah, that team. I know they have a lot of injuries, but this season, there's a chance they don't even make it into the postseason. In fact, a good chance they don't make it into the postseason. It's probably more likely than not that the Braves are not playing in October this year. That's disappointing for them, but it's a reminder for Phillies fans why not to take a postseason berth for granted. The Philadelphia Phillies postseason, their postseason magic number is 1. And you control one of those numbers. It's not like a game where you only pick up a half if you win, but the other team wins. No, like it accounts for the counting down of games. So if you just win tonight, you have a victory in the postseason race. You have made it. You have worked your way in. Also, what could happen if the Phillies lose tonight and the Braves lose tonight, because the Braves are that final team chasing a spot in the postseason right now. So the magic number for all postseason berths in the National League is built on the Braves and how many games back they are. If the Braves lose tonight, I believe they're playing in Cincinnati. Let me double check that. So we're going to be rooting for the Reds a little bit. Yes, they play the Cincinnati Reds at 6:40 p.m. And they have Spencer Schwellen back on the mound against Jacob Junis. So you've got an opportunity if the Braves lose that you don't even need this game against Milwaukee and you'll be in the postseason. Basically, it's a certainty, right? But that's just what you need to know about the postseason berth. Will they pop champagne for it? I don't know, especially with a big series against the Mets coming up the next day and having to travel. They might take this one a little bit easier. But when they win the NL East, they'll go nuts. And that's going to be awesome. To do that, the division magic number is 4. So that's built on the Mets because the Mets are the next closest team trailing you. The Mets are currently trailing the Philadelphia Phillies in the division by a total of, and it's a large total, 8 games. The Phillies have a chance to win this division by double digits, which is going to be awesome to see. And winning the division in general, it's been 13 years. It'll be amazing. But so every game the Mets lose, you cut one off. Every game the Phillies win, you cut one off. And that means you really only have to win the first 2 games of this series against the New York Mets. It's done. The division is yours. You could clinch up there in Queens. And that gets a little bit interesting, right? Just real quick, I want to update you on where the Mets are at right now in case you can get some help because the Mets play the Nationals tonight. The Phillies play the Brewers. If the Phillies win and the Mets lose, you could be clinching the NL East as early as tomorrow night. Crazy how close they are, right? With some time left to go. So there's this whole conversation. Part of it is stupid. Part of it makes sense. Here's the dumb part of the conversation about where you want to clinch. Oh, I don't know if I want to see them clinch up at Citi Field. I'd rather see them do it at Citizens Bank Park so the home crowd can enjoy it and we could celebrate on our own. Screw that. No, absolutely not. You don't say, oh, well, we're going to, not that they'd ever intentionally drop games, but well, I hope the Phillies don't beat the Mets, who are still chasing them in the division. Like, nothing's fully locked up. It's basically locked up. I mean, the NL East is over. There's no way the Phillies are losing this division. But you're also fighting for the 1 seed. You're fighting for a first-round bye. You don't want to drop any games unnecessarily. You don't want to prolong this anymore. Just go ahead and clinch wherever you can and keep winning baseball games until you've taken care of business, getting the highest possible seed that you can get. But there's another part of that discussion, right, that's based on more than just, I don't want to see them have to celebrate up there. It would be awesome to celebrate on the Mets field, by the way, and have that. What's that? Okay, I'll say it because you're going to wonder what I was going to say. And have that picture like the Braves took at Citizens Bank Park when they clinched the division here. Well, that didn't work out too well for them. So you hope it's not a repeat for the Philadelphia Phillies like that. And I probably shouldn't have ever put that out into the universe, but I did. Whatever. Don't blame me. It's not my fault. I'm wearing the victory shirt. I saved the season, remember? But the point is, there's more to it than just that. If you clinch the division and clinch your seating or figure out pretty much where your seating is going to end up, then do you get this feeling that the Phillies are playing less meaningful baseball? Do they have a little bit less intensity when they go out there? Do they play a little bit more relaxed? And does that lead to bad habits? And do those bad habits lead to, well, 2 weeks worth of not playing competitive games or overly competitive games? And then after the first round bye, are you walking into a situation where the team is rusty? They can't just flip a switch. Now, what I will say is the Philadelphia Phillies teams of the past 2 years have been great switch flippers. They found their way into the postseason, backed their way in 2022, and then turned it on as soon as that 9th inning happened in St. Louis. In 2023, they were playing all right down the stretch. They were starting to hit some homers, but they really, really picked it up as soon as they hit the postseason and hit the ground running. So the past 2 years, they haven't exactly been world beaters going into October, and they've flipped the switch consecutive. Will they do it again? Well, it's not a guarantee. So ideally, you want to be rolling and then just continue that play. But you need those games to matter to get the true intensity in the feel. And I don't think there's any way of truly replicating it. We hear this term all the time, right? Oh, it was a playoff-like atmosphere at Citizens Bank Park. I don't think you can replicate October at the bank, even for the biggest regular season baseball games. It's a different environment. Remember that shot of Bryce Harper hitting an absolute nuke off the Braves, and there's dudes on the roof of the stadium. I don't even know how they get up there. Yeah, that's not going to be created over the final week or so of the season. So part of that argument's valid of you want them to play more meaningful games closer to actual October so they don't get rusty. I get it. But what I keep coming back to is just don't take anything for granted. Clinch as soon as possible. Win as many games as you can. Put yourself in as good a position. If that costs you October trying to fight and you're tired out, I don't know, man. You're going to find any team that loses is going to find a reason why they did. The Phillies, all they can do is put themselves in the best position, and that includes them winning ball games going forward, even once the NL East is clinched, because you're fighting for one of the top seeds. So those are the basic clinching scenarios that we're going to keep an eye on over the next couple of days. When the postseason berth is locked up, hopefully tonight, when the NL East is locked up, hopefully in the next couple of days, then we'll start looking at the scenarios for clinching a top 2 seed, the 1 seed. All of that will continue to be built. So we'll see where it goes from there, but that's just your little update on getting close to having that red October secured, which is a great thing. Again, one more time, never take that for granted. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Game 3 in Milwaukee. I've talked a lot about the Mets today and how that matchup with them is going to be big, but the matchup with Milwaukee is still huge. That's a team trying to chase you down for the 2 seed, and their magic number is 1 for their division because they have a bigger divisional lead. So hey, go ahead and take a peek at tonight's game. It's a big one if you're a Philadelphia Phillies fan, even if you already have the season series. You want to win this series. How will they do it? Well, we'll discuss everything you need to know about tonight's contest coming up as we wrap up Locked On Phillies. But I got to tell you first, all right, Arena Club. I mean, you got to check out arenaclub.com. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 $2,000 or more on someone like a Bryce Harper rookie card or a Zack Wheeler rookie card, or if you like some of the other players, an Ellie De La Cruz rookie card or something like that. You know what? It just isn't in the cards. Nice little pun there. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. And thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that's listed was hit from last week's Arena Club slab pack. You got to go ahead and check that out. Ellie De La Cruz, Mahomes, Luka rookie cards all came out. The Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one so you know what your chances are. You got to go ahead and check it out. I mean, you've seen the videos online of people pulling one-of-one gem mint, unbelievable cards that could either make you the happiest person in the world, the richest person in the world, or something in between both of those things. Arena Club makes that easier for you. And right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB and use code LockedOnMLB. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB, code LockedOnMLB, and you'll get 10% off your first purchase with arenaclub.com. All right, let's wrap up with a preview of tonight's game. I do want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. Please make sure your next listen is Locked On MLB, the Locked On MLB podcast hosted by Sully. It's a good time of year for that. You're trying to see what's going on around baseball. We were just talking magic numbers. Sully will let you know what's happening with the Dodgers, not the Brewers now because you're playing them, but the Yankees who are in the race for best record in baseball. The stuff going on in the American League, or the Orioles going to find a way in. There's some compelling teams that Sully's going to be talking about. You're going to want to go ahead and give that a listen. Available on YouTube, podcasts, wherever you get them. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Tonight on the mound, well, you're going to see a guy that everyone in Philadelphia has questions about every time he walks to the mound. Sometimes they're answered in a great way, and sometimes he has kind of rough starts. But Aaron Nola toes the rubber, facing off against Freddy Peralta. Nola, 12-8 this year, not the greatest record, and a 3.62 ERA, a little bit higher than he would like it. But that 1-2 whip is great. The problem with Nola is he's given up 28 home runs this year, and he hasn't really had the same strikeout stuff that you've seen. In 181 in the third innings pitched, only 174 Ks. Freddy Peralta, I mean, listen how similar these numbers are, right? The record, 11-8 to Nola's 12-8. A 3.75 ERA to Nola's 3.62. A 1.24 whip to Nola's 1.20. He's thrown a couple innings less, only 163 in the third innings. 184 strikeouts, though, so big-time strikeout guy, bigger so than Aaron Nola. He's given up 25 homers to Nola's 28. You look at it, and a lot of the numbers are very similar, but the big discrepancies are he's walked significantly more batters than Aaron Nola. He struck out significantly more batters than Aaron Nola. You know what I'm going to say, right? Freddy Peralta, righty on the mound. Should be a good matchup for the Philadelphia Phillies, but when you hear those numbers, big strikeout guy, big walk guy, not around the zone all that much, usually means really good stuff, which Freddy Peralta has, leads to the Phillies, if they don't keep their approach what's the word that I'm looking for? Consistent? That's not the word, but it'll work. If they don't, disciplined. If they don't keep their approach very disciplined, got it. They're going to be in a situation where they strike out a bunch. They did in last night's game, then they found a way to win anyway, but you don't want to be building that as a habit. Those are the things you want to break away from in October, because putting the ball in play is a lifesaver. Striking out a bunch is a momentum builder. Tonight, you're facing a guy in Freddy Peralta that can strike out a bunch of batters, and it's going to make it tough for you to win, especially when you have a guy like Aaron Nola that does give out bombs. It's looking like from Freddy Peralta's numbers this year that his misses are hittable misses, right? Over the plate, balls you can drive. You're looking at something that could lead to home runs for both teams tonight. Maybe if you're a betting man or woman, take the over in tonight's game. Certainly possible. You can go ahead and check that out on FanDuel and see what the numbers are for the Philadelphia Phillies Milwaukee Brewers matchup. But let's talk some of the numbers. The Phillies are plus 105 on the money line. The Brewers are favored tonight in the contest. The over-under here is listed at 7.5 and 42.9% chance for the Phillies to win. So ESPN Analytics actually has the Brewers as a solid favorite in this game. I'd imagine it's the questions about Aaron Nola and the Brewers needing this game significantly more than the Phillies do. The Phillies, if they lose this game, they still have the season series over the Brewers, which gives them that extra game buffer. The Brewers are sniffing postseason lockup, NL Central lockup. They really want this game. Not that the Phillies don't, but it feels a little bit more like a spot that the Brewers are zoned in than the Phillies are zoned in, just from what is at stake for either of these teams. Again, I don't think the Phillies are going to lay down and die. Just sometimes when you have that extra motivation can be the little bit you need between two really good teams. And these are two really good teams. The Phillies are 91-60. The Brewers are 87-64. They're not too different record-wise, and Milwaukee's a quality ball club. So what you're going to have to do, who are the guys that you're going to have to get help from? The top of the lineup is going to be huge again. Schwarber, Turner, Harper, and if it is indeed Castellanos, I know those top three should be pretty much well set unless someone gets a weird day off. But I can't expect them to go 7 for 18 again and have 5 RBIs, but I can expect them to try and stay right around 300 all combined in the average, and maybe add another 2 or 3 RBIs on there. You'll have to get more contribution from the bottom of the lineup, though. And as you get healthier and you get Edmundo Sosa back and Alec Boehm starts working his way back, you start to balance out the lineup more. So I'm interested to see. The real question, right, is not so much will the top of the order produce, because they've been doing pretty well with that. They're going to be the ones that put you over the top. But can you get those little ticks of contribution from guys like Johan Rojas or Brandon Marsh, or, let's say Edmundo Sosa is back in the game and Alec Boehm gets another night off. Jay Chiramuto, who's down a little bit further in the lineup this year. I know he's not a, fringe guy, but he can add to the strength of this team when he contributes offensively. Those are the guys that are going to be, well, I guess the whole lineup I've basically listed at this point, but the balance between depth and star power, not one side having to carry everything, would be a welcome thing to see as the Phillies look to carry more momentum into their series with the Mets tomorrow. But again, tonight, 7:40 p.m., one more run against the Brewers in the regular season. Could be the last time you face this team all year. Could be a postseason matchup waiting in the wings, but that's why you need to pay attention and do your best in every single one of these games to prove that you're capable of beating this team. And they did that last night. I expect that they'll give it a good run again tonight. My guess would be the Phillies find a way to win this one, but I also know that they're looking at a game coming up on Thursday that matters significantly more, a divisional game. So do you look ahead to the Mets? Do you care significantly about the Brewers because they're chasing you down for that 2 seed? You should care about all of it. There should be no lack of focus for the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm just listing out ways that athletes normally think through this stuff. But hopefully it's a win. Hopefully I'm wearing this victory shirt again tomorrow. And hopefully we're celebrating the Philadelphia Phillies making it to Red October. Do I have to bring champagne on the podcast tomorrow? Maybe. You have to tune in tomorrow to find out. But that's all for today's episode of Locked On Phillies. Thank you so much for checking us out. Again, we're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff. And I'll talk to you tomorrow about the hopefully postseason bound Philadelphia Phillies here on Locked On Phillies.